Welcome to Japanese Sleep Whispers, your sanctuary for peaceful nights and gentle dreams. Here, you will find calming bedtime stories inspired by the timeless beauty and traditions of Japan. Each story is read slowly in a soothing voice, accompanied by natural sounds such as flowing rivers and the tranquil rhythm of shishi-odoshi. Whether you seek relaxation, relief from stress, or help falling asleep, these tales invite you to drift away into a world of serenity. Imagine quiet temples, moonlit gardens, and the whispering bamboo forests as you listen. If you'd like these soothing stories to be part of your nightly routine, consider subscribing so they're always with you when you need them. Subscribe and let these stories be your nightly ritual of calm and rest. Thank you for being here. May you always find peace in every moment. Ancient Breezes of Nara. Prologue. The breath of Nara. There are places where time forgets to move. Nara is one of them. In the hush before dawn, when the deer still sleep beneath the cedar tree's end. The temples hold their breath, the air itself seems to remember not as a thought, but as a feeling carried by the wind. The wind of Nara is old. It drifts through the moss-covered stones of forgotten paths, slides across the bronze bells of the temples, and circles the tall lanterns that line the shrine roads, touching each with a soundless sigh. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it speak. It does not use words, for the wind does not need them. It speaks in rustles, in silences between footsteps, in the faint quiver of paper charms hung on strings. Long ago, long before Edo, before even the first emperor's reign, this same breeze carried the scent of incense and ink. It touched the faces of poets and monks, it whispered through scrolls of prayer, and once, it lingered beside a young manho. Painted the sound of the wind itself. But that is a story for later. For now, there is only this breath, the ancient breath of Nara, moving through the twilight that lies between dream and waking. A low mist lies upon the city, soft as the sleeve of a kimono brushed against water. Stone lanterns glow faintly through the fog, their flames trembling like the pulse of the earth. A deer lifts its head, ears twitching toward the sound of a bell echoing from Todaiji's great hall. Each vibration ripples outward, passing through centuries of air. The sound is not heard so much as remembered, for memory in this place is as physical as breath. In the distance, a single monk walks along the pathway between the temple and the fields. His sandals whisper upon the stone. As he walks, he murmurs a sutra, and the wind carries it upward, where it dissolves into the pale sky like incense smoke. Everything here moves in the rhythm of sleep, slow, circular, eternal. Even the crows do not break the silence, their wings slice gently through it, as though they, too, have learned reverence. And within this quiet, something stirs, not a sound, but a memory opening its eyes. There was a time when the city breathed in another way. Lanterns burned brighter, voices filled the streets, and the call of merchants mingled with the laughter of children. The air was thick with life. And yet, beneath it all, the same wind moved unseen, watching, listening, remembering. It remembers the scent of wet ink drying on rice paper. It remembers the hum of a brush against wood. It remembers the quiet devotion of a boy named Hayato, who worked in a small workshop near the edge of the forest, where the air was always cool, and the sound of the bells drifted like distant rain. He was a maker of words, a scribe of things that could not be spoken. But unlike others, he did not write prayers or poems. He wrote sounds. With every stroke of his brush, he captured what could not be seen: the flutter of a deer's ear, the sigh of morning. Fog, the soft whir of wind against temple chimes. He called it Haze no Show, the Book of Wind. The people of Nara thought him strange, a dreamer who spent too much time listening to nothing. But the monks knew. They said the boy was chosen by the breath of the ancient city itself. And perhaps, in the nights when the air was still and the moonlight fell in silver threads across the rice fields, they were right. The wind remembers everything. It remembers when the first bells rang. It remembers when the pagoda's shadow first fell upon the moss. It remembers the lovers who met beneath the camphor trees, and the prayers whispered to the river. Even the stones remember, but the wind carries those memories onward endlessly, gently, as if afraid to let them rest too soon. Tonight, as the last of the mist slips down the valley and the stars fade behind the coming dawn, the wind passes once more over Nara. It moves through the cedar forest, touches the cold bronze of the Buddha's hands, and sighs across the old wooden bridges. Each breath is a memory released, each whisper, a story waiting to be told. Somewhere beyond the city's edge, in a small house built beside a stream, a paper screen trembles, though no one has touched it. A brush lies on a desk. The ink in its stone well has not yet dried. Hayato stirs in his sleep. He hears the wind moving through the shoji, calling his name. It is not a voice, but he understands. "Wake," it says. "I have returned." His eyes open slowly. He does not move. He listens. Outside, the morning is pale and unformed, like a page waiting for its first stroke of ink. The wind sighs again, and somewhere, 1,000 deer raise their heads at once. The day begins, and with it, The Story of the Ancient Breeze. Chapter 1 The Scribe of the Wind. Morning in Nara arrives not with noise, but with the soft rhythm of breath. The deer move slowly through the fog, their hooves pressing gentle circles into the wet earth. From the distant temple, a bell rings low, patient, and full of age. Its echo folds into the morning air like silk into water. Hayato rises before the sound fades. He kneels upon the tatami floor, bows toward the east where the mountains sleep, and listens. He has always begun his days this way, not with words, but with listening. To the wind in the cypress leaves, to the trickle of the stream behind his house, to the faint rustle of wings in the rafters. These sounds, though small, are the brushstrokes with which the world paints itself anew each dawn. He lights a single stick of incense. Its smoke coils upward, slow and uncertain, before drifting sideways, drawn by a current only he seems to notice. He smiles faintly. "Good morning," he whispers. "You came early today." No one answers, but the curtain sways as if touched by an unseen hand. Hayato's workshop is small, built of cedar and paper, its walls lined with scrolls and brushes of every size. On the central table lies his life's worksheets of fine Nara paper, each bearing not words, but flowing lines that seem to move when the light changes. He calls them fu-no-e paintings of wind. Others see only streaks of ink and space. But when the right breeze passes through, the lines seem to stir, and faint sounds emerge, the whisper of branches, the low hum of distant bells, the heartbeat of the earth beneath the fields. No one knows how he does it, not even Hayato himself. He only knows that since childhood, the wind has spoken to him. He remembers being a boy, chasing his paper kite across the riverbank. The sky had been bright, the air thick with the smell of summer grass. When the kite string snapped, the paper bird soared high, spinning toward the mountains. Hayato ran after it until he could run no more. And then, from the ridge above him, he felt the wind stop, not vanish, but hold its breath. In that stillness, he heard something vast and endless, like the earth remembering its own name. That was the first time he heard the voice of the wind. Since then, he had devoted every day to capturing that sound on paper. At midday, he walks to the market, his sandals whispering against the stone path. The air smells of persimmons and smoke. Old women call out from behind baskets of herbs, and children chase each other past the temple gate. But beneath the bustle, Hayato feels another rhythm, a quieter one, hidden between breaths. The wind moves through the alleys, twining between the red torii gates, brushing across the sleeves of passing priests. It hums softly, a language older than any written word. He stops beside the stone lantern near Sarusawa Pond. The surface of the water ripples, though no pebble falls. He kneels, listening. The air seems to whisper in his ear. "Do you still remember me?" He blinks, startled. For a moment, the reflection in the pond is not his own. It is the shape of a woman, her hair long, her eyes calm as dusk. Then the breeze shifts, and the image breaks. Hayato remains still for a long time. The wind sighs, and the deer nearby lift their heads. That evening, he returns home and begins to work again. He grinds the ink slowly, the sound of the inkstone merging with the cicadas' fading cries. Outside, the sky turns violet, the first stars trembling in the west. Each stroke of his brush is deliberate, each breath measured. He paints not the wind he hears, but the space it leaves behind. His lines twist like smoke, curl like whispers, fade into emptiness. And in that emptiness, he feels presence. When he finishes, he sets the paper aside to dry. The lamp flame flickers, and for an instant, the ink seems to shimmer not black, but silver. The same silver as the mist above the Kasuga forest. He closes his eyes and exhales. The scent of the cedar outside mingles with the lingering ink. A soft breeze slips through the open shoji, brushing his cheek like the touch of a hand. "Still awake?" it murmurs. Hayato smiles faintly. "Always." The wind seems to laugh, a low sound, almost human. Then it fades, leaving behind only the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Before sleeping, he steps outside. The moon has risen over the hills, a pale coin resting in a bowl of mist. He hears the faint call of a night heron, the whisper of the trees shifting in the dark. He bows to the night, then whispers, "If you have a story for me, come again tomorrow." The wind answers with a sigh so gentle it might have been imagined. In the shadows of the forest, far beyond the town, something stirs. A prayer bell swings softly, though no one is near. Paper charms flutter on the torii gates, their edges glowing faintly in the moonlight. And from the heart of the cedar grove, a figure begins to walk barefoot, her white sleeves flowing like mist. She pauses, lifts her face to the wind, and smiles. "Tomorrow," she whispers. "Yes, tomorrow." Chapter 2. Beneath the cedar shadows. The forest of Kasuga never sleeps. Even when the city of Nara lies quiet beneath its blanket of mist, the cedars whisper among themselves, their tall bodies creaking with memory. Lanterns line the ancient path, their stone faces moss-covered, their hollow eyes filled with the gentle flicker of foxfire. Hayato walks beneath them, carrying a small lantern of his own, a gift from an old monk who once told him, "If the wind ever leads you astray, let light remember your path." Tonight, he needs that light. The moon is a thin slice above the trees, and the air hums with the low murmur of cicadas. Each sound is distant yet near, as though the forest itself breathes through a veil. Hayato follows the path until he reaches the old shrine, a place swallowed by roots and time. Here, the wind moves differently, not playful, but purposeful. It circles him slowly, brushing his sleeve, lifting strands of his hair as if in greeting. He bows to the shrine gate. The wood, darkened by centuries of rain, seems almost alive beneath his fingertips. "It has been a long time," he murmurs, though he does not know to whom he speaks. The air shifts. The lantern flame wavers, and from the shadows between two great cedars, a pale figure steps forward. At first, he thinks it is mist. Then the mist takes the shape of a woman barefoot, her white robe trailing along the moss, her hair black as the inside of a shell. She does not disturb the leaves as she moves. Even her shadow seems to float above the earth. When she stops before him, the air stills completely. Only the sound of the river remains, a heartbeat far away. "Do you remember me?" she asks softly. Her voice is the wind itself, half whisper, half sigh. Hayato's lips part, but no sound comes. The wind lifts again, and the faint scent of sakura petals touches the air. "I have heard your voice," he says at last, "since I was a child." She smiles faintly, and it is like moonlight moving across water. "Then you have listened well." She walks past him, pausing before the shrine. The lantern light paints her outline in gold. "Once," she says, "the winds of Nara were clear and bright. They carried prayers from temple roofs to the stars. But as men built walls and markets, their words grew heavy, and the wind began to forget its own song." She turns to him, eyes luminous in the dimness. "You remember it still. That is why I came." Hayato bows deeply. "Who are you?" "A name is only a sound," she replies. "But if you need one, call me Aoi." The name lingers like dew upon his tongue, familiar, though he has never spoken it before. They walk together through the grove, their footsteps making no sound. The forest seems to lean closer, listening. Aoi stops beside a pool fed by an underground spring. Its surface reflects the stars, though none are visible above the canopy. She kneels and touches the water. Ripples bloom outward, forming faint circles of light that hover for a moment before fading. "This is where the breath of the old winds still sleeps," she says. "Every cedar remembers. Every drop of rain carries its echo. Hayato watches, entranced. Can they be written? He asks. Can their voices be kept? Aoi looks up at him. Perhaps. But to write the wind is to lose it. To keep it is to let it go. He frowns slightly. I don't understand. She smiles again. You will. They sit together in silence. The night deepens, and faint fog drifts between the trees. Aoi hums a sound so light it could be mistaken for the forest breathing. Hayato feels something shift within him, like ink spreading through clear water. He remembers all the nights he spent listening to the breeze against the paper walls, thinking it was only nature's sigh. Now, he wonders if it had always been her. The thought fills him with quiet wonder and fear. Why show yourself to me? He asks. Aoi gazes at the lantern in his hand. Its flame flickers gently, casting halos across their faces. Because you are the last one who still listens. The winds of this world fade when no one hears them. She leans forward, her hair gliding across her shoulder like silk. If you wish, I can teach you the old songs, the ones that shape clouds, that make rivers remember. Hayato hesitates. Would I still be human? Aoi's expression softens. Dreams do not belong to one world or another. They drift, as I do. The forest sighs. Somewhere far away, a bell rings again, slow and deep. The sound ripples through the trees, touching their hearts. Aoi stands. When the next full moon rises, come back to this place. Bring your brush, and bring silence. She steps backward into the mist. For a moment, her eyes glow like twin reflections of the moon. Then the fog closes around her, and she is gone. Hayato remains alone by the pool. The air feels heavier now, filled with echoes of her voice. He kneels beside the water, touches its surface, and whispers. To write the wind is to lose it. To keep it is to let it go. The words dissolve into ripples. Above, a single leaf drifts downward, landing softly upon his lantern's glass. Its shadow dances with the flame. He exhales, and the wind answers a murmur, almost like a promise. When he returns home, the world feels both the same and utterly changed. His brushes lie waiting on the table. The inkstone gleams faintly in the lantern light. He picks up the brush, dips it once into the ink, and lets his hand move without thought. Lines flow curved, spiraling, rising like smoke. When he lifts the brush, the paper shimmers with motion, and a sound like wind over distant hills fills the room. Hayato closes his eyes. He hears her voice again. Dreams do not belong to one world or another. He lets the brush fall. The room grows still. Only the night remains, breathing through the half-open shoji. And somewhere, beyond the forest and the hills, the ancient breezes of Nara begin to stir once more. Chapter 3: The Song Between Worlds. The night in Nara was no longer just darkness. It was a veil, thin as silk, stretched between two breaths, one of the waking world, the other of dreams yet to be named. Hayato stepped quietly along the stone path of Kasuga Shrine, his lantern swaying in rhythm with his heartbeat. The wind moved beside him, sometimes brushing his cheek, sometimes whispering through the cedar needles, always guiding, always knowing. Ahead, a faint light shimmered between the trees. It was not the lanterns along the path, but something else, something alive, breathing. He walked closer, and there she was, Aoi. Her white sleeves spread wide, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. The air around her vibrated softly, as though the forest itself were listening. "Tonight," she said, "you will see the wind's voice as it truly is." Hayato's heart quickened. He had painted the wind, heard it in whispers, felt it in paper, but never had it called to him like this. "How?" he asked. Aoi raised her hands. The lanterns along the path began to flicker and sway. The leaves lifted from the ground and danced, spinning slowly in the pale light. A soft hum filled the air, low and melodious, like 1,000 voices singing without sound. "Close your eyes," she whispered. He obeyed. The world of night dissolved into a silver mist. He was neither standing nor kneeling, but floating in a space that was everywhere at once. The wind spoke, not in words, but in a symphony of sensations: the brush of silk on skin, the ripple of water across stones, the gentle pressure of air bending through trees. Each note carried memory: the laughter of children long gone, the cry of a heron above a river, the faint heartbeat of mountains. Hayato could feel the sound as much as hear it. He raised his hands and moved them as if conducting. The wind responded, bending into arcs, spirals, and ribbons, twisting around his fingers, through his hair, across his face. "Now," said Aoi softly, "paint it." He opened his eyes. Ink and brush lay before him, but the paper was alive, rising in gentle undulations like waves. He dipped the brush and let it flow, not thinking of shapes or meaning, only following the currents of the invisible song. Lines spread, black on white, then shimmered into silver, then dissolved again into air. The wind sang through his hand, through his breath, through every line he painted. Time ceased. Or perhaps it flowed in circles, folding upon itself. The forest, the shrine, the moon all seemed suspended within a moment too vast to hold. He realized he could feel her presence even when he could not see her. Her hands guided the breeze, her eyes hummed with the rhythm of leaves, and her voice, though quiet, was the cord that held everything together. "Do you understand now?" she asked. He nodded, though words would fail him. "The wind is alive," he whispered. "It remembers everything it sings." She smiled, and the hum grew softer, as if the forest itself were exhaling. "And we are only instruments. But that is enough." The silver mist began to fade, and the world returned the stone lanterns, moss, the soft rustle of the cedars. Yet something lingered, a sense that he had crossed a threshold, that the wind had carried him to a place where dreams and reality intertwined. Hayato knelt beside the drying paper. The brush in his hand trembled. The lines he had drawn shimmered faintly, like living threads of air. He could almost hear the echoes of the song again, folding into the shapes he had made. "Tonight," he murmured, "I touched the wind." Aoi's shadow brushed past him, soft as breath. "And tomorrow," she said, "the wind will speak again." He closed his eyes. The hum of the night continued. The cedar trees swayed. The distant bell tolled once. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the breath of Nara whispered, carrying the memory of the song through the silver mist, through the lantern light, through every dream that would ever follow. Chapter 4: The Festival of Lanterns. Night fell gently over Nara, a slow descent into velvet shadows. The air smelled faintly of wet earth and incense, and the soft rustle of leaves whispered like a lullaby. Lanterns were being lit along the river banks, one by one, like 100 small moons settling into the gentle current. The townspeople moved quietly, their faces soft in the golden glow, their voices hushed in reverence. Hayato walked among them, his own lantern swinging in time with his heartbeat. He had brought fresh sheets of paper, each waiting for the brush to capture the wind's invisible patterns. Above, the wind stirred. It lifted the flames, caressing each lantern with a gentle, deliberate motion. It whispered through the trees, stirring the leaves like soft applause. Aoi appeared beside him, her white robes flowing like mist over the river stones. "Tonight," she said, "the wind will remember everything." She lifted a lantern, its flame quivering in her hands. She let it float onto the river's surface. The water received it gently, and the lantern drifted downstream, joining the others. Hayato knelt and placed his own lantern on the river. The wind rose suddenly, a soft chorus weaving around them, lifting each flame as if breathing life into it. The lanterns danced on the water. They spun slowly, colliding softly and separating again, their reflections fracturing into 1,000 silver streams. Every ripple carried a memory. A child's laughter. A prayer whispered under a cedar tree. The sound of a brush gliding over paper. The faint sigh of the river as it remembered the moon. "See?" Aoi whispered. "The wind carries everything, even what we think we have forgotten." The festival deepened, but Hayato noticed that few townspeople looked at the river. They moved like shadows, their eyes downcast, unaware of the quiet music beneath the lantern's glow. Only he and Aoi truly saw it, the river alive with memory, the wind singing softly between the lanterns. Hayato dipped his brush in ink. He could hear the faint hum of the wind in the strokes he made. Lines spiraled like the smoke from incense, then dissolved into emptiness, leaving only the sensation of air moving across paper. "It is more than a festival," he murmured. "It is the wind remembering itself." Aoi nodded. And as with it, the moon rose higher, silver light spilling across the water. Hayato closed his eyes. He could feel the lantern's pulse, their flames synchronizing with his own heartbeat. The wind wrapped around him, its song threading through the cedar branches and the distant hills. Somewhere, far beyond the city, the deer lifted their heads. The river responded, ripples spreading like breath across the surface. "This is what it feels like," Aoi said softly. "To be part of the memory, not just to watch it pass." Hayato nodded. He let the brush move freely, the lines on paper capturing the silver hum, the invisible music of wind, the heartbeat of the festival. When the lanterns had all floated downstream, Hayato and Aoi walked along the riverbank in silence. The air was still, but alive with the traces of wind. They could feel the echoes of every step, every whisper, every flame that had drifted by. "Tomorrow," she said, "the wind will continue to remember. And so will we." Hayato watched the last lantern fade into the night. "Even if no one else sees it?" he asked. Aoi's eyes reflected the silver of the river. "Even then, the wind remembers, and it will always find someone to carry its song." The festival ended, but the memory remained, the soft pulse of lantern light, the gentle hum of wind, and the silver rhythm of the river moving silently toward the sea. Hayato returned home, his brush and ink waiting patiently. He dipped the brush and let it move without thinking, letting the wind guide his hand. Outside, the moon hung low in the sky, and the night was full of whispers. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolled slowly. He smiled, for he knew the wind, the lanterns, the river all were alive. And in their silence, he had found a song. Chapter 5 Letters to the Wind. The night was softer than any before, as though the world itself had taken a deep breath. Lanterns had returned to their resting places, but the air still hummed faintly, filled with echoes of whispers and paper brushing against fingers. Hayato carried a small stack of folded letters, their edges slightly curled from the humidity of the evening. Each one bore a prayer, a hope, a fragment of a heart offered not to the gods directly, but to the wind, which had always remembered more than any mortal ever could. Aoi walked beside him. Her white sleeves trailed along the mossy path. "The wind carries not only words," she said. "It carries intention, memory, sorrow, and joy. It knows the hearts behind the letters better than you do." Hayato glanced at her, curiosity mixing with awe. "Even if they are never read by anyone?" Aoi's smile was faint, like moonlight over water. "Even then, the wind remembers. And sometimes, in its own way, it answers." They reached the edge of the forest where the river bent toward the rice fields. The air was cool, filled with the scent of moss and distant earth. Hayato knelt beside the water, placing each letter gently upon its surface. The wind lifted them immediately, curling the paper edges, spinning them lightly, before letting them drift downstream. He watched, fascinated, as the letters floated like pale leaves on a silver tide. The wind seemed to hum with them, twining the messages together into a single, endless song. "Do you feel it?" Aoi asked. "Each one becomes part of the wind's memory. Each hope a note, each sorrow a chord. Together, they form a song no one could hear alone." Hayato closed his eyes. He felt the movement of the water, the stir of the trees, and the faint heartbeat of the earth beneath him. The wind passed through him, lifting hair from his forehead, brushing his cheeks. It was gentle, patient, infinite. "I feel it," he whispered. "I hear it." Aoi knelt beside him. "Now, we add our own." She took a blank piece of paper, folded it carefully, and whispered something onto it. The wind lifted it at once, and the small flame of his lantern flickered in acknowledgement. Hayato realized she had not written a single word. Yet somehow, the wind knew exactly what had been offered. He placed his own folded paper beside hers, closing his eyes as he let intention guide him. The wind took both, lifting them high above the river. For a moment, the forest seemed suspended, every leaf, every stone, every ripple in the water holding its breath. Then the papers drifted slowly downstream. The lanterns floating above the rice fields seemed to tilt in response, as though bowing to the unseen currents of memory. Time stretched and bent. Hayato could no longer tell if he had been kneeling for minutes or hours. The air itself felt alive, vibrating with voices. He could not yet distinguish voices of all who had trusted the wind from centuries past, from villages long vanished, and from hearts yet to be born. Aoi stood and extended her hand. "Walk with me," she said. "There is a place where the wind rests tonight. I want you to hear it clearly." They moved through the shadowed path, past stone lanterns, past mossy steps, to a small grove of cedars at the river's bend. The wind here was different, thicker, almost tangible, curling around their bodies like a soft cloak. Hayato breathed slowly, letting it brush through him, and for the first time, he felt entirely separate from the world, and yet intimately part of it. "This is where the river of memory flows," Aoi whispered. "The wind carries every letter ever sent, every thought ever breathed, every hope ever whispered." He knelt again, listening to the hum that surrounded him. It was not music in the ordinary sense, but a living vibration, a song built from the essence of every human heart, flowing endlessly through the forest, through the lanterns, through the rice fields glimmering under the moon. Hayato opened his eyes. The papers he had placed on the river were gone, vanished into the silver glow of the wind. Yet he felt them still, as if each letter had returned to him in a heartbeat, or as a thread connecting his soul to the world. Aoi placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "Tomorrow, the wind will carry more. And the day after that, even more. You will not be able to see it all, but that is the nature of memory. It cannot be held by one alone." He nodded. "Then I will listen." The wind swirled around them, whistling softly through the cedar branches. It carried the smell of moss, ink, and the faintest trace of incense. It lifted a leaf and spun it gently into the river. Hayato felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet knowing. He understood, at last, that the wind's song would never end. It was infinite. It would continue through every lantern, every prayer, every letter, every hope. "And I am part of it," he whispered. "Even if only as a listener." Aoi smiled, the shadows of her sleeves brushing the river's edge. "Yes. And that is enough." The night deepened further. Stars appeared above the grove, their light mirrored in the water. The lanterns from the festival flickered faintly in the distance. Hayato and Aoi sat quietly, hands resting upon the cool earth, listening to the wind as it carried the infinite song of memory. Somewhere far away, a bell tolled slowly. The sound rippled through the forest, through the river, through time itself. And in that gentle toll, Hayato knew that the wind had answered. Not with words, but with the quiet, eternal music of remembrance. Chapter 6: The Sound That Was Never Heard. The night was absolute. No wind stirred the cedar boughs, no water rippled along the river's surface, no lanterns flickered along the stone paths. It was as if the world itself had held its breath. Hayato stepped quietly along the grove, the soft earth muffling his sandals' whispers. He felt the absence of wind like a hollow in his chest, a pause in the rhythm of everything he had known. Aoi appeared beside him, her white sleeves brushing against the mossy ground. She did not speak immediately. Instead, she sat quietly on a stone, her eyes closed, listening to the silence. "The wind rests tonight," she said softly. "Do you hear it?" Hayato closed his eyes. At first, there was nothing but stillness. No hum, no whisper, no memory carried through the air. Yet slowly, beneath the quiet, he began to notice faint pulses, the subtle heartbeat of the forest, the echo of footsteps. Long past, the faint vibration of water moving deep underground. "It is there," he whispered. "A sound that has no name." Aoi opened her eyes and smiled. "Yes. It is the sound that was never heard, except by those who truly listen." They sat together in silence, each inhaling the night, letting it fill every corner of their being. The forest was a living pulse, but it no longer needed the wind to carry its song. Instead, the sound came from within them, from the spaces between thought, from the quiet chambers of memory and heart. Hayato felt his own breath deepen. He could hear the ink drying in his workshop, the faint hum of lantern flames from yesterday's festival, and even the soft laughter of Aoi as she had appeared in the grove. All these sounds interwove, creating a harmony that belonged to no one, and yet to everyone. "It is beautiful," he murmured. "Even without the wind." Aoi nodded. "Sometimes, the greatest songs are heard only in silence. And sometimes, they are never meant to be shared." The stars above shimmered faintly through the cedar canopy, their light touching the forest floor like silver dust. A deer moved quietly in the distance, pausing as if sensing the stillness. Hayato extended his hand, feeling the cool earth beneath his fingers. "I think I understand now," he said. "The wind does not only carry what is spoken. It carries what is unspoken, what is felt." Aoi reached for his hand, her touch soft as the brush of petals on water. "And that," she whispered, "is why it remembers you." They remained in the grove for hours, though time no longer seemed to exist. Hayato traced patterns in the dirt, silent symbols that mirrored the currents of his heart. Aoi mirrored him, her hands moving through the air as though shaping the invisible waves of memory. And though no wind stirred, the forest felt alive. It breathed with them, listened with them, and for the first time. Hayato felt that he could hear the unhearable, the sound of life itself, not carried on air, but emanating from the essence of being. "This is why we listen," Aoi said softly. "Not to capture the world, but to become part of its song." Hayato closed his eyes. The sound that had never been heard filled every corner of his consciousness, a gentle symphony of heartbeats, leaves, water, and memory. He understood now that the wind was not the only messenger, silence was too. When the first pale hints of dawn touched the sky, the grove seemed to exhale. The deer slipped silently back into the forest, and the air shifted, carrying a faint hint of returning breeze. Hayato rose slowly, feeling the weight of understanding settle into him. He did not speak. There was no need. Aoi stood beside him. "The wind will return," she said. "But tonight, you have heard the sound that never was. Remember it." He nodded. "I will." Together, they walked back through the grove, the soft earth cushioning their steps. The wind returned gradually, stirring the leaves and lifting the morning mist. But in Hayato's heart, the silence remained, a melody that could be carried. Forever, the sound that had never been heard, yet had spoken more clearly than any song. Chapter 7: The Forgotten Garden. The garden lay hidden behind a grove of ancient cedars, a place long forgotten by those who walked the city streets. The path leading to it was lined with moss-covered stones, soft underfoot, and heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth. Hayato followed Aoi quietly, his lantern casting a pale, wavering light. The air was different here, still, dense, as if time itself had paused to rest within the branches and petals. "This garden," Aoi whispered, "is where the old winds sleep." Hayato glanced at her, curiosity mingling with awe. "The old winds?" he asked. "Do they really live here?" Aoi nodded, her eyes reflecting the lantern's glow. "They do. All the winds that have passed through Nara, the voices of those who came before, the laughter, the prayers, the sighs, they linger here." They entered the garden. It was unlike any garden Hayato had seen. The plants were still, yet seemed poised to move. Flowers glowed faintly in colors not found in daylight. The stone paths curved unpredictably, leading deeper into shadows and light. A soft wind stirred. Not the ordinary wind of the forest, but something older, gentler, heavier with memory. It swirled around him, lifting his hair, brushing his sleeves. "It remembers everything," Aoi said. "Even the moments lost to time. Even the voices we can no longer hear." Hayato knelt beside a stone basin filled with water. The surface reflected not only the lanterns, but glimpses of long-gone moments, a festival, a childhood laugh, the first brushstrokes of a painter now gone. Each ripple carried a memory, folded into the water like a secret kept. "I can feel it," he whispered. "All of it all at once." Aoi smiled faintly. "That is why you are here. To learn to listen not only to the wind, but to the memory it carries." They walked further, the path narrowing between two walls of moss-covered stone. Hayato noticed faint symbols etched into the rocks, spirals and curves that seemed almost alive. "Are these writing?" he asked. Aoi knelt and traced one symbol with her fingertip. "In a sense. But these are not words for the mind. They are words for the heart, for the part of you that remembers without thinking." The air around them shimmered. Hayato could see shapes moving in the shadows, not fully formed, yet unmistakably aware. They were the spirits of wind, echoes of voices, lingering currents of memory. "Will they speak to me?" he asked softly. Aoi's eyes glowed faintly. "They already do. But only if you let go of what you know. Only if you become still enough to hear the music beneath their whisper." Hayato sat on a stone bench, closing his eyes and letting the garden speak. The faint rustle of leaves became a chorus, the water's gentle ripple a timpani, and the symbols on the stones shimmered with invisible vibrations. He opened his hand and felt the air flow through it, cool and alive, as if each gust carried the memory of centuries. For the first time, he realized that the wind was not just a messenger, but a keeper of everything that had ever passed through Nara. "The wind is alive," he whispered. "Not just moving, but remembering." Aoi knelt beside him, her hand brushing his shoulder. "And now, you are part of it," she said. "Your brush, your ink, your listening, it adds to the garden's song." Time seemed to lose meaning. The stars above twinkled faintly through the cedar canopy, though the garden existed in its own reality, between night and day, between memory and the present. Hayato dipped his brush into ink. He painted not on paper, but in the air, tracing the invisible currents that moved through the garden. The lines shimmered, catching glimpses of memory, then fading into the soft glow of lantern light. "This is what it feels like," he whispered. "To see the wind, to hear the past, to be part of it." Aoi smiled. "And tomorrow, we will return to the world outside, carrying the garden within us." Hayato rose slowly, feeling the weight and lightness of centuries in his chest. He knew he would never forget this place, the garden of lost winds and hidden memories, nor the song that it had shared with him. The wind stirred once more, lifting petals, rustling leaves, and in its gentle embrace, he felt the promise of countless stories yet to be told. Chapter 8: The Wind's Farewell. The sky over Nara was a wash of silver and amber, the last warmth of summer fading into early autumn. The river flowed quietly, reflecting the subtle glow of lanterns left behind from the festivals. Hayato walked along the bank, the weight of anticipation heavy upon his chest. Aoi appeared silently beside him, her white sleeves trailing through the reeds. "Tonight, the wind will leave us," she said softly. "It is not anger or sorrow, but a necessary part of its path." Hayato's eyes widened. "Leave? How can it leave? I thought it was always here." Aoi shook her head gently. "Even the wind must travel. Even memory must sometimes rest. Our time with it is a gift, not a permanence." A faint breeze began to stir, almost imperceptible at first, then gaining strength, lifting leaves, swirling around the stone lanterns. Hayato felt it brush against his face like a sigh. The lanterns along the river tilted in response, as though bowing in farewell. "Do we follow it?" he asked. Aoi's gaze was fixed on the river. "No. Tonight, we remain. But the wind leaves part of itself with us. Remember, even in the absence, it can be felt." Hayato knelt by the water, watching the currents twist and shimmer. The river reflected the fading sky, and for a moment, he saw not his own reflection, but the faint outline of countless winds that had passed before, spirits of memory, laughter, and sorrow caught in the last light of summer. The wind rose suddenly, dancing through the trees with a vigor unmatched. It whirled around Hayato and Aoi, circling them in invisible spirals, lifting petals, dust, and tiny fragments of memory. "Do not fear its leaving," Aoi whispered. "It carries the story of all that has been and all that will be." Hayato felt the wind's energy coiling around him. It spoke not in words, but in sensation, the gentle press of time passing, the hush of leaves waiting, the echo of voices never heard. He wanted to reach out, to hold it, to keep it here, but Aoi's gaze held him still. "To grasp it is to lose it," she said. "To release it is to honor it." The wind began to recede, fading slowly like mist retreating from a river bank. The lanterns flickered once, twice, then settled into quiet steadiness. The air felt hollow yet charged, as if the world itself had taken a deep breath. Hayato stood, feeling the emptiness in the space where the wind had been. And yet, in that emptiness, there was a resonance, a subtle hum that seemed to live inside his chest, in his fingertips, and in the ink of the brush waiting at home. "It has gone," he murmured. "But I feel it still." Aoi nodded. "Yes. The wind never truly leaves. It travels, and we carry it with us. Tonight, it tests us, and tomorrow, it will return in ways we cannot yet imagine. They walked along the riverbank in silence. The reeds swayed, the water whispered, and the distant temple bell tolled slowly, its voice folding into the quiet of the night. Hayato thought of all the letters, all the lanterns, all the memories he had witnessed. He understood that the wind's departure was part of the song, not a pause, but a subtle shift in melody. "I will wait for it," he said softly. "And I will listen, always." Always smiled, her presence calm and steady. "That is why you are ready," she said. "Even when it leaves, even when the silence grows, the wind will teach you more than you can imagine." As the last currents of the summer wind faded into the distance, Hayato felt a new kind of stillness, not emptiness, but a space for memory, reflection, and the quiet anticipation of future songs. The night deepened. Stars began to twinkle faintly above the cedars. Hayato and Aoi sat quietly on the mossy riverbank, listening to the soft rhythm of the river, the heartbeat of the earth beneath them, and the subtle echo of the wind that had gone yet remained in every pulse of the night. "Tomorrow," Aoi whispered, "it will return." Hayato nodded. "And we will be ready to hear it." The river reflected the first hints of moonlight, and the world seemed to exhale, folding the memory of the wind into the quiet glow of night. Chapter 9: The Winter's Whisper. The first snow of winter fell softly over Nara, a delicate hush that draped the city in silver. The river's surface was muted, reflecting only the faint glow of distant lanterns. Even the cedars seemed to bow beneath the weight of snow, their branches creaking quietly under the silent burden. Hayato walked slowly along the path, his breath rising in gentle clouds. The wind had returned, but differently now, soft, whispering, and carrying the chill of winter. It brushed his cheeks, stirred the lantern flames, and seemed to hum with a memory colder than summer yet alive with quiet life. Aoi appeared beside him, her white robes blending with the drifting snow. "The wind has returned," she said softly, "but it has changed. Winter carries secrets different from summer's song." Hayato nodded, feeling the difference immediately. "It feels slower, more thoughtful." Aoi smiled faintly. "Yes, winter is the season of reflection, of listening deeply to what remains when the warmth has faded." They approached the river bank, where the snow had begun to settle on the stones. Hayato knelt and touched the cold surface of the water, watching his fingers disturb the reflections of lanterns and stars. "Tonight," Aoi whispered, "the wind will speak in whispers. Listen, and it will teach you things not spoken in summer." The wind moved around them, a soft current carrying tiny sparks up. Sound the faint rustle of snow settling on leaves, the echo of past footsteps, the sigh of the river as it adjusted to winter's hush. It swirled gently, brushing hair and sleeves, and Hayato felt it like a pulse, not outside of him, but within. "I can hear it," he murmured. "Even in the silence, it speaks." Aoi nodded. "The wind always speaks, but only those who are still enough to hear it truly understand its message." Hayato dipped his brush into ink. The cold air made his fingers stiff, but he moved the brush carefully, deliberately. Lines formed in the air before touching paper, tracing spirals and arcs that seemed to capture the whispering wind itself. Snowflakes landed on the inked paper, melting slowly, blending with the black strokes, creating new patterns that shimmered like silver threads. "The wind remembers differently in winter," Aoi said softly. "It holds onto what is hidden, what is quiet, what is easily forgotten in the warmth of summer." Hayato continued to paint, his strokes guided by the subtle currents. He realized that the wind carried both absence and presence, and that the quiet moments were just as alive as the loud ones. Time seemed to stretch, each snowflake falling in a rhythm he could feel, but not see. The forest around them was a living cathedral, each cedar and stone echoing the winter's whisper. "The world feels different," he said. "Even the river sounds different." Aoi reached for his hand. "Yes. The river carries winter now, and with it, the memory of all the winds that have passed. We are part of it, and it is part of us." Hayato closed his eyes, feeling the wind move through him, and in that movement, he sensed the past, the present, and the possibility of every future. Every snowflake was a note in the quiet symphony, every ripple in the river a word in the wind's eternal story. "I will remember this," he whispered. "Always." Aoi smiled, the snow resting gently on her hair like a crown. "And I will be here," she said, "to remind you that even in silence, the wind sings its song." The snow continued to fall, softly, endlessly, covering the world in silver and quiet. Hayato and Aoi remained by the river, listening, breathing, feeling the wind carry every memory, every whisper, every heartbeat of Nara. The lanterns along the distant paths flickered faintly, as though echoing the rhythm of the winter wind. And in that stillness, Hayato understood that the wind's song was eternal, woven into every season, every shadow, every breath. Chapter 10: The Moon Over Snowfields. The world was white. A blanket of snow stretched endlessly, reflecting the pale silver of the moon. Hayato walked slowly across the fields, his lantern a small pulse of warmth in the vast cold. The wind had returned fully, not as a whisper, but as a living presence, carrying the memories of seasons past, the echoes of lanterns, rivers, and hidden gardens. It twirled through his hair and brushed against his cheeks, soft yet insistent, guiding him forward. Aoi appeared beside him, her robes blending with the snow, her eyes reflecting the moon's cold fire. "Tonight," she said softly, "the moon watches over the snowfields, and the wind carries everything to it." Hayato gazed at the horizon. The snow shimmered like glass, and the moon hung low and luminous, its reflection mirrored perfectly in frozen streams. He felt a profound quiet, a moment suspended between time and eternity. They walked together, leaving faint tracks that the wind quickly erased. Hayato noticed the subtle currents in the snow, tiny drifts shaped as though the earth itself breathed. "It is alive," he whispered. "Everything, the snow, the wind, the moon alive." Aoi nodded. "Yes. And tonight, you will see what it has carried for you." The wind swirled, lifting snowflakes that sparkled like starlight. They danced in intricate patterns, forming shapes that Hayato could barely comprehend. Faces, landscapes, moments of laughter and sorrow, all moving as if painted by the invisible hand of memory. "The wind shows its heart," Aoi said, "and you are part of it." Hayato knelt, letting his hands brush the snow. The flakes melted instantly, leaving behind faint trails of frost that shimmered in the moonlight. He reached out to catch one, and felt not cold, but warmth, a pulse that resonated deep within him. The moon rose higher, its light spreading across the fields, turning each snowdrift into a quiet ocean of silver. Hayato and Aoi stood together, silent, listening. The wind carried every memory, every whisper from the festivals, the forgotten gardens, and the letters sent to the river. They converged here, in the snow, a symphony without sound, felt rather than heard. Hayato dipped his brush into ink, holding it over the snow. He painted in the air, and the wind took each stroke, shaping it into patterns that floated above the fields, ribbons of black. Tracing arcs and spirals, illuminated by the moon. "It is beautiful," he whispered. "The song, the world, it all becomes one." Aoi smiled, the snow settling lightly on her hair like tiny stars. "Yes. And now, it will remain, carried forever in the wind, in memory, in the river, in the lanterns, and in your heart." Time no longer existed. Hayato could not tell how long they remained there, minutes, hours, or a span beyond measure. The wind moved with them, and within its currents, he felt the presence of every season, every memory, every whisper of the past and promise of the future. "I understand now," he said softly. "The wind is alive, and so is every moment it touches." Aoi reached for his hand, and together they watched the moon reflect in frozen streams. The snow whispered beneath their feet, and the wind carried every thought, every hope, every quiet prayer across the fields, beyond Nara, beyond time itself. "The world is vast," she said, "and we are only small currents within it. Yet even small currents leave ripples." Hayato nodded, feeling the infinite weight and freedom of the moment. The wind lifted once more, carrying the brushstrokes from his hand, the snowflakes from the ground, the memories of lanterns. Rivers and gardens, all spiraling upward toward the moon. The night deepened further, the moon now high and steady. Hayato felt a profound peace, a unity of dream and reality, of past and present, of wind and snow, of himself and the world around him. Aoi stood beside him quietly. "Remember," she whispered, "the wind never truly leaves. It returns, in every season, every snow, every whisper of the world." Hayato closed his eyes, breathing in the cold, the wind, the light. He understood at last that the song of the world was endless, and he was both listener and part of the melody. The snowfields shimmered beneath the moonlight, and the wind hummed softly, carrying the stories of Nara, of lanterns. Rivers, gardens, and the hearts of those who listened. And in that harmony, Hayato and Aoi stood together, feeling the eternal, quiet music that connects all things. Chapter 11: The River of Time. The river flowed endlessly, its waters silvered by the moon and snow of the passing night. Hayato stood at its edge, watching the currents twist and shimmer with reflections of lanterns, forests, and the snowfields. The wind was gentle, a soft murmur carrying the memory of every moment that had ever touched Nara. Aoi appeared beside him, her gaze tracing the flowing river. "Time flows like this river," she whispered. "Never still, never the same. Every moment moves forward, yet carries the past within it." Hayato nodded, watching leaves drift along the surface, their paths weaving through eddies and ripples. "And we are like the leaves?" he asked. "Carried along, guided by the current?" Aoi smiled softly. "Yes. And yet, the river bends for those who listen. Those who watch, and those who let the wind speak to them, can see not only the flow, but the memory within the water." Hayato knelt and touched the cold, flowing water. The current embraced his fingers, and for a moment, the river seemed to slow, revealing glimpses of past festivals. Forgotten gardens, and lanterns drifting downstream. Every ripple carried voices, faint and distant, yet somehow intimate, a symphony of all that had come before. "The wind carries time," he murmured. "Not just the present, not just the past." Aoi nodded, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "It carries every heartbeat, every breath, every whisper. Time is not lost, only folded into the song of the river." They stood together as the night deepened. Hayato felt the brush in his hand hum with energy, the ink alive. With the memory of wind and river, and of all the quiet, unseen currents that had shaped the world. He dipped the brush and traced patterns in the air, and the river responded. Ripples spiraled outward, catching starlight and moonlight, transforming each stroke into a living thread of memory. "I can see it," he whispered. "The past, the present, even the future, all flowing together." Aoi reached for his hand. "And in this flow, you are both observer and participant. The river, the wind, and you are intertwined." The wind rose slightly, not with force, but with gentle insistence. It carried scents of cedar, snow, and ink, whispering through Hayato's hair and Aoi's sleeves. The river hummed in harmony, each current a note, each ripple a word, telling the story of seasons, dreams, and the lives of those who had walked these lands. Hayato closed his eyes, allowing the wind and river to envelop him completely. He felt centuries fold into a single breath, every heartbeat remembered, every whisper acknowledged. "I understand now," he said softly. "The river and the wind, they do not just carry memory. They carry meaning." Aoi smiled faintly. "And that is the greatest gift of all. To witness, to participate, to leave a trace, and yet to flow onward, like time itself." The first light of dawn began to touch the sky, casting pale gold across the river's surface. Hayato and Aoi remained by the water, listening to the subtle hum of time's river, feeling the wind wrap around them like a familiar song. "Tomorrow, and every day after," Aoi said softly, "the wind will carry all that has passed and all that is yet to come. And you will remember, as part of its song." Hayato nodded, feeling the quiet profundity of that eternal truth. "I will," he whispered. "Always." The river flowed onward, silver and infinite, and the wind carried the memory of Nara, of lanterns, gardens, snowfields, and moonlight, through every season, every heartbeat, every whisper. And in that quiet eternity, Hayato and Aoi stood together, bound to the song of the wind and river, immersed in the endless, gentle flow of time. Chapter 12: The Eternal Song. The world was still, yet alive with countless unseen movements. The river flowed quietly, silver beneath the moon, carrying every whisper, every shadow, every fragment of memory from Nara. The wind moved softly, weaving through the cedars, through the rice fields, through lanterns floating in memory. Hayato stood beside Aoi, their breath rising in small clouds. He could feel the pulse of time, the heartbeat of the world, the quiet hum of everything that had ever been. "Do you hear it?" Aoi whispered. "The song that never ends?" Hayato closed his eyes. At first, there was only silence. Then, a thread of sound emerged, woven from wind, water, snow, and lantern light. It was faint, fragile, yet vast, the music of memory and presence entwined. "Yes," he murmured, "I hear it. And it is infinite." The wind rose gently, carrying snowflakes, petals, and whispers. Each one seemed to vibrate with its own song, and together they created a harmony beyond words. Hayato felt the brush in his hand, and without thinking, he let it move freely. Strokes formed in the air, joining the invisible threads of the eternal song. Aoi reached for his hand. "We are part of it," she said softly. "Not as creators or owners, but as listeners, as witnesses, as echoes." Hayato nodded, feeling the full weight and beauty of that truth. Every lantern that had floated, every letter that had drifted down the river, every wind that had brushed through forests and gardens, was now a note in a melody he could feel deep within. The moon rose high, casting silver across the river and snowfields. Hayato and Aoi walked slowly along the bank, their footsteps silent in the sacred rhythm of the night. The wind swirled around them, not hurried, not leaving, but embracing them like a familiar song long remembered. "Even when the world changes," Aoi whispered, "the song continues. It does not begin, it does not end. It simply is." Hayato felt tears on his cheeks, not of sorrow, but of quiet joy. He understood, finally, that he had been listening all along, not to the wind alone, but to the eternal pulse of existence, the harmony of time, memory, and being. They paused by the river, watching the lantern's reflections mingle with the moon. The snow fell gently, each flake catching the light and dissolving into the infinite song. Hayato dipped his brush one last time, painting not paper, but the air itself, tracing the currents, the melodies, the invisible threads. The strokes shimmered and vanished, yet their essence remained in the wind, in the river, in the memory of Nara, and in their hearts. "We are part of it," he whispered. "And it is part of us." Aoi smiled, the snow resting on her hair and robes like silver notes. "Always," she said, "forever carried in the wind, in the river, in the lanterns, and in the heart of the listener." The river flowed onward, silver and eternal. The wind hummed softly, wrapping the world in its gentle embrace. The moon shone steadily above, and the stars blinked faintly, mirroring the countless memories floating through time. Hayato and Aoi stood together, listening, breathing, feeling the eternal song. And in that moment, dream and reality, past and future, wind and snow, all became one. The world was alive, and so were they, not separate, not alone, but part of the infinite, gentle music of existence. Night walked beneath the osmanthus blossoms. Prologue: the whisper of osmanthus. In the quiet folds of an Edo night, when lanterns cast gentle circles of light upon cobblestone streets, there was a stillness that seemed almost eternal. The air carried a sweetness, subtle and delicate, of osmanthus blossoms drifting down from the trees lining the narrow lanes. Each petal that fell seemed to murmur secrets of days long past, as if the city itself held its breath in reverent silence. Beneath one such tree, a young man named Haruto walked slowly, his footsteps careful and unhurried. He carried nothing but a small satchel, the contents simple: a few folded papers, a brush, and an inkstone. Yet, to Haruto, these objects were as precious as treasures, for they were the companions of his nightly wanderings. The means by which he traced the hidden poetry of the city. The moon hung low and pale, a soft silver disk that touched rooftops and canal waters alike. Haruto's eyes followed its reflection as it shimmered and danced, the movements gentle, almost hypnotic. Around him, the world seemed to stretch and yawn, dissolving the burdens of the day. Leaving only this quiet, suspended moment where time itself felt like a slow, drifting river. The fragrance of the blossoms grew stronger as he walked, curling around him like a lullaby. Each inhalation was a balm, soothing the mind and guiding the spirit toward the delicate threshold between wakefulness and sleep. In this liminal hour, Haruto felt an intimacy with the city he had never known in the bustling hours of daylight. The wooden shutters, the paper lanterns, the muted laughter from distant tea houses all seemed to form a gentle chorus, welcoming him into a secret nocturnal world. He paused beneath a particularly old osmanthus, its branches heavy with golden flowers, and let the cool night air brush his cheeks. The petals swirled around him, a soft snow of fragrance and color, and Haruto closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the silent song of the night. In that pause, the city breathed with him, and he felt the quiet joy of belonging to something far greater than himself, a world woven of shadow, scent, and gentle light. And so, the night began its slow unfolding, a path of blossoms and whispers, where one could wander not to arrive, but simply to exist in the tender, drifting embrace of the Edo evening. Chapter 1 Lanterns along the canal. The night deepened like ink brushed gently across the sky. Haruto followed a narrow lane that led to the canal, where the water flowed with an unhurried grace, reflecting the trembling light of 1,000 lanterns. They drifted lazily along the surface, their orange glow rippling and stretching with the current, as if the stars had chosen to wander the earth for a while. The canal was quiet except for the low hum of insects hidden among the reeds. Wooden bridges arched overhead, their beams polished smooth by the countless feet that had crossed them through the years. From afar, the faint sound of a shamisen floated in the air, thin and wistful, its melody curling like smoke through the night. Haruto walked slowly, his sandals brushing against the worn stones. Each step seemed to merge with the rhythm of the water. Sometimes he would pause to watch the light flicker against the surface, or to see the reflection of a distant house shoji screens glowing like warm cocoons. At one point, he stopped near a small tea stall that had closed for the evening. The Norin curtain still swayed in the breeze, carrying the faint scent of roasted barley tea. A few forgotten cups sat on the counter, catching moonlight in their shallow pools of water. Haruto smiled faintly. He imagined the laughter of travelers who had rested there earlier, their voices now replaced by the soft hum of the night. He leaned against a post and looked up at the sky. Between the drifting clouds, stars glimmered like tiny bells. He could almost hear them ringing delicate, distant, and kind. Beyond the canal, the wind stirred a cluster of osmanthus trees. Their petals fluttered down, settling upon the water's surface and mingling with the lanterns. The golden blossoms spun gently in the current, like fragments of forgotten dreams. Haruto reached out, dipping his fingers into the cool water, and watched the ripples spread outward, carrying the tiny lights farther and farther downstream. For a while, he simply stood there, his reflection merging with the flow. In that moment, he thought about how every lantern carried its own quiet story, messages of hope, remembrance. Or perhaps nothing more than a wish whispered into the night. He wondered if the city ever slept, or if, like him, it simply dreamed with open eyes. A soft bell rang in the distance, perhaps from a temple, perhaps from a passing boat. The sound was slow and gentle, like the heartbeat of the night itself. Haruto closed his eyes and listened. Each chime echoed through the streets, across the rooftops, and over the rippling canal. And as the sound faded into silence, the world seemed to sigh. The air grew cooler, filled with the scent of damp wood and blossom. Somewhere behind him, a paper lantern flickered, its flame shrinking and stretching as though breathing. Haruto turned, and for a moment, the glow reflected in his eyes. He began walking again, following the curve of the canal as it led deeper into the night toward places unseen, where memories might rest like fallen petals. Chapter 2: The Bridge of Silent Footsteps. The hour had deepened into that tender stillness before dawn, the time when dreams linger just beyond the waking world. The lanterns along the canal had burned low, their flames flickering like tired hearts ready to rest. Above, the sky held the faintest blush of gray, the promise of morning not yet fulfilled. Haruto continued along the narrow street, where dew gathered like pearls upon the wooden railings. His path led him toward a bridge, an old structure of cedar and stone, worn smooth by centuries of passing souls. It arched gracefully across the canal, its reflection forming a perfect circle in the mirror like water below. He slowed his pace as he approached, listening to the faint creak of the boards beneath his sandals. The sound was almost shy, as if the bridge itself were whispering secrets from long ago. Haruto rested his hand upon the railing. The wood was cool and damp, carrying the scent of rain that had fallen earlier that evening. From the far end of the bridge came a faint rustle, perhaps the wind, or the brush of a kimono sleeve. Haruto looked up but saw no one. Only the drifting mist, pale and silken, moving like breath through the air. He stepped forward. Each footfall was deliberate, slow, absorbed by the quiet. Beneath him, the water murmured in a voice soft as velvet, carrying fragments of reflection, lanterns dimming, blossoms swirling, stars dissolving into the faint blush of dawn. Halfway across the bridge, Haruto paused. The horizon was beginning to lighten, and for a fleeting moment, the world seemed to hover between two breaths. The night had not yet gone, and the day had not yet come. In that suspended hour, even the smallest sound felt sacred, the drip of water from the eaves, the distant croak of a frog, the soft brush of the wind through reeds. He leaned over the railing and watched the surface of the canal. The water was clear enough to catch the shape of his face, the curve of the bridge, and the silhouettes of osmanthus branches arching overhead. The petals fell steadily, slow and bright against the dim water, gathering in gentle spirals that drifted away. Haruto imagined that each blossom carried a tiny dream within it, a hope from someone sleeping nearby, or perhaps from the city itself. They floated together, merging, parting, whispering to one another as they traveled toward the distant sea. He took a slow breath. The fragrance of the blossoms mingled with the cool mist, filling his lungs with something indescribably tender. It felt as though the night itself had entered him, soft, timeless, eternal. A faint light glimmered on the eastern edge of the sky, like the first brushstroke of a painter's hand. The rooftops began to take shape, their outlines tinted with pale silver. The city stirred ever so slightly. A dog barked once, and then silence returned, deeper than before. Haruto smiled faintly. He knew that soon the world would awaken. The merchants, the children, the clatter of carts, the smell of miso and fresh rice. But for now, he stood at the very edge of time, wrapped in the hush that existed between the final sigh of night and the first breath of day. He crossed the last few steps of the bridge. When he reached the other side, he turned once more to look back. The bridge arched behind him, still bathed in shadow, still dreaming. The water beneath it shimmered faintly, and a single lantern, its flame weak but persistent, floated slowly beneath the arch, drifting toward the widening dawn. And then, with quiet certainty, Haruto continued on his way, his figure dissolving into the pale light that was beginning to bloom across the Edo horizon. Chapter 3: Morning Tea and Falling Blossoms. The dawn unfolded gently, like silk unrolling across the sky. The first light touched the rooftops of Edo, tracing their curved tiles in a soft, golden hue. Smoke rose slowly from distant hearths, twisting into ribbons that drifted lazily above the sleeping streets. The city was waking, but only just its heartbeat, still slow, unhurried, like a child stirring from a pleasant dream. Haruto walked along a narrow lane lined with willow trees. Their branches swayed lightly in the morning breeze, brushing against his shoulder as if greeting him in silence. The scent of damp earth and faint charcoal lingered in the air. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crowed once, its voice cutting through the stillness before fading into the hum of morning. At the end of the lane stood a small tea house, a modest wooden structure with sliding shoji doors and a low, thatched roof. Its signboard read simply "Aki no Kase, the Autumn Wind." The name made Haruto smile. It was a place he often passed during his evening walks, though he rarely entered. But this morning, the soft exhaustion of the long night guided his steps inside. The door slid open with a whisper. Inside, the room was washed in the gentle light of dawn. A few cushions were set neatly along a low table. The scent of roasted tea leaves filled the air, warm and comforting. Behind the counter, an elderly woman moved quietly, her gray hair tied back, her motions as smooth and unhurried as the flow of a river. "Good morning," she said, her voice low and kind, as if careful not to disturb the peace of the hour. Haruto bowed lightly. "Good morning." It seems I've walked through the night without noticing. The woman smiled, her eyes soft. Ah, the night carry you far when it wishes to. Please, sit. The tea is almost ready. Haruto took a seat by the window. Outside, sunlight filtered through the branches of an osmanthus tree that stood in the garden. The petals continued to fall, one by one, their fragrance weaving through the open doorway. Each petal landed softly upon the veranda, some caught in the steam rising from a kettle. He rested his chin upon his hand, watching the quiet dance of the blossoms. It felt as though the night's dream had simply changed shape, continuing now in daylight. The woman placed a cup before him. The porcelain was simple, yet beautiful, the surface faintly cracked with age. Steam rose from the tea in slow, swirling ribbons. "Osmanthus tea," she said gently. "Picked from the very tree you're looking at." Haruto lifted the cup and took a careful sip. The flavor was delicate and floral, faintly sweet, with a lingering warmth that spread through his chest. It was as though he were drinking the morning itself, the softness of the light, the hush of the air, the stillness between one breath and the next. For a long while, neither spoke. The silence between them was not empty, it was full of quiet understanding. The world beyond the door began to stir, the faint rhythm of sandals upon stone. The clatter of a cart, the call of merchants, but within the tea house, time seemed to move differently. Haruto finished his cup and set it down. The night was long, he murmured, but peaceful. The city feels softer after the dark. The woman nodded. Edo is like that. It wears two faces, the waking and the dreaming. You have walked in both tonight. He smiled at her words. Outside, a soft breeze lifted the fallen petals from the veranda and sent them swirling once more into the air. Haruto watched them drift away, each one catching a glimmer of sunlight before vanishing beyond the roofline. The sight filled him with a deep, quiet contentment, a feeling that everything was as it should be, even if only for this fleeting moment. He rose, bowed deeply to the woman, and thanked her for the tea. She returned his bow with a small smile, her eyes reflecting the same calmness that filled the air. As he stepped back into the street, the morning light embraced him fully. The canal shimmered nearby, the sound of distant laughter beginning to mix with the calls of birds. The night had ended, but its peace still lingered, carried in the taste of osmanthus and the warmth of the tea. Haruto adjusted the strap of his satchel and began walking once more, his pace slow, his heart unhurried, toward wherever the quiet streets of Edo might lead him next. Chapter 4: Ink and the Memory of Night. By the time Haruto returned to his small dwelling, the sun had risen fully. Though it remained soft and forgiving, its light spilling like warm water across the wooden floor. The air carried the scent of fresh tatami and faint traces of the osmanthus blossoms still clinging to his sleeve. He slid open the paper screens and let the morning breeze drift in. Outside, the sounds of Edo had begun to stir the distant chatter of merchants setting up their stalls, the clack of geta upon stone, the rhythmic beat of a carpenter's mallet echoing somewhere down the street. Yet within Haruto's room, there was still a hush, a pocket of calm preserved from the long, wandering night. He knelt before a low writing table. On it lay his brush, inkstone, and a roll of fine washi paper, the same items he had carried through the lantern-lit streets. Each object was familiar, yet in the light of morning, they seemed transformed, imbued with the quiet glow of memory. Haruto poured a small measure of water onto the inkstone. The sound was delicate, a soft patter, like a raindrop on still water. Slowly, he began to grind the inkstick, moving it in gentle circles. The scent of soot and pine resin rose in the air, dark and earthy, grounding him in the moment. As the ink deepened to a rich, silken black, he dipped his brush and began to write. His characters flowed slowly, one after another, forming not a story but a kind of breathing. Each stroke carried the rhythm of his walk through the night, the hush of the canal, the glow of lanterns, the fall of petals upon water. "The city sleeps," he wrote softly, "and yet, it dreams through me." He paused, listening to the faint rustle of paper as the ink dried. Outside, a sparrow landed on the veranda and chirped once, tilting its head curiously before fluttering away. Haruto smiled, then continued. He wrote of the bridge that sang beneath his feet, of the mist that moved like thought, of the old woman's tea that tasted of sunlight filtered through blossoms. He wrote as though his brush were translating the fragrance of the night into form, capturing something fleeting, impossible, and yet utterly real. Time passed without notice. The sun climbed higher, turning the paper pale gold. The shadows of the shoji lattices stretched across the floor, marking the slow passage of hours. At last, Haruto set down his brush. His writing filled the page in gentle, unhurried lines, each one carrying a whisper of calm. He read over them once, but not to correct, only to listen, as though the words themselves were breathing softly in the room. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. The ink's scent lingered, mingling with the fragrance of the blossoms outside. It reminded him of the stillness beneath the osmanthus trees, and for a moment, he felt as if the night had returned not as darkness, but as a memory woven gently into the daylight. A knock sounded faintly at his door, perhaps a neighbor, or a child playing nearby. But Haruto did not rise immediately. He sat in silence, letting the world move around him, feeling the warmth of the day settle over his shoulders like a shawl. Outside, the wind stirred, scattering a few fallen petals across the veranda. One drifted through the open screen and landed upon the edge of his paper. Haruto watched it, smiling faintly. It seemed a sign that the night still lived, whispering through the day. He lifted the petal and pressed it gently between the pages. A quiet keepsake, a bridge between what had been and what was. Then, as the sunlight deepened, he rose to make tea once more, his heart light, his mind calm, the ink of his words glimmering softly like the memory of a dream not yet forgotten. Chapter 5 Afternoon Breeze and the Song of Bells. The warmth of the afternoon settled gently over Edo like a silken shawl. The light had softened from gold to amber, filtering through the leaves of the willow trees that lined the river bank. The air shimmered faintly, carrying with it the mingled scents of river water, rice straw, and the lingering sweetness of osmanthus. Haruto walked slowly along the edge of the Sumida River, his sandals brushing against the dusty path. The hum of the city had mellowed, the busy morning chatter had given way to a drowsy stillness. The world seemed to sway between waking and dreaming once more. Children were playing near the water's edge, their laughter bright but not loud like bells struck gently in the distance. They sent small paper boats drifting down the river, chasing them with hopeful eyes until the current carried them out of sight. One child waved to Haruto as he passed. He smiled and lifted his hand in return, the gesture simple and warm. Further along the path stood a row of small houses. From their eaves hung wind chimes, each one a different shape and sound. Some were glass, others metal or painted clay. The breeze moved through them tenderly, drawing a chorus of delicate notes that mingled with the murmur of the river. Chirin, chirin. The tones were soft, like fragments of dreams suspended in the air. Haruto closed his eyes for a moment and listened. Each bell seemed to carry its own season, its own story, the quiet patience of summer afternoons, the laughter of unseen children, the secret sighs of those long gone. He stopped beside one house where a particularly lovely chime hung, a clear glass sphere painted with small goldfish. When the wind passed, it rang with a bright, innocent sound that made him smile without knowing why. The door of the house slid open slightly, and an old man appeared. He was dressed in a simple cotton kimono, his hands still wet from washing vegetables in a basin. Beautiful sound, isn't it? The old man said, his voice kind. Haruto bowed lightly. It feels like the river itself is singing. The man chuckled. Ah, perhaps it is. My daughter made that 1 year ago. Every summer, when it rings, I think of her. She lives far from Edo now, but the sound brings her close again. Haruto nodded, his gaze softening. It must be a comfort to hear her voice in the wind. It is, the old man said simply. Then, with a small smile, he added, would you like some tea? The afternoon is long, and tea always makes it gentler. Haruto accepted. Together, they sat beneath the shade of the eaves, watching the river flow. The old man poured tea into 2 small cups, green, fragrant, faintly bitter. They drank in silence, the only sounds the gentle clink of porcelain, the distant laughter of children, and the continuous whisper of the chimes. The breeze grew stronger for a moment, carrying with it petals from somewhere upstream. They drifted down through the air, golden and fragrant, settling lightly on the river's surface. Haruto watched them float past, remembering the night before the bridge, the lanterns, the hush beneath the blossoms. It seems the night has followed me into the day, he murmured. The old man smiled, his eyes half closed. The night never leaves us entirely. It simply changes its shape. Sometimes it becomes a shadow. Sometimes a song. Haruto looked up at the sky. The sunlight was beginning to mellow, the horizon already tinted with the faintest hint of evening. The world shimmered as if half submerged in a dream. He finished his tea and thanked the old man with a bow. The sound of your wind chime will stay with me, he said. And you, the man replied, may carry the wind itself, if you walk long enough. Haruto smiled at that. As he returned to the path, the wind stirred once more. And the chime rang out a clear, bell-like note that seemed to linger in the air long after he had walked away. He followed the river until the sound faded into the distance, replaced by the soft hum of cicadas and the quiet pulse of water against the stones. The world, wrapped in warmth and drifting song, seemed to breathe in rhythm with him. And as the sun leaned toward the horizon, Haruto felt once more that he was not merely walking through Edo, but through a dream of it, one made of wind, light, and the gentle, endless sound of bells. Chapter 6: Twilight over the paper lanterns. The afternoon light faded slowly, like the last brushstroke of a painter reluctant to leave the canvas. Shadows stretched long across the streets of Edo, and the sky began to soften into a haze of lilac and amber. The hum of the city changed its tone. What had been lively now turned tender, voices lowering, footsteps gentler. as if all of Edo were exhaling together at the end of the day. Haruto walked along a lane where shopkeepers were hanging paper lanterns outside their doors. The red and white orbs swayed lightly in the evening breeze, each one holding a small flicker of flame that trembled against the deepening sky. The scent of grilled fish and fresh soy filled the air, mingling with the lingering perfume of the day's blossoms. Children ran past him, their laughter fading into the alleyways, while women carrying baskets of vegetables spoke in soft tones near the well. Somewhere in the distance, a shamisen began to play a song so slow and wistful that even the air seemed to pause and listen. Haruto found himself walking toward the sound. It led him to a small square where several stalls had gathered for the evening market. Candles flickered beside rows of handmade fans, sweets wrapped in paper, and trinkets carved from wood. Above them, a few fireflies drifted lazily through the twilight, their lights flickering in gentle rhythm with the lanterns. He bought a small sweet dumpling glazed with honey and ate it slowly as he walked. The flavor was warm and delicate, dissolving on his tongue like sunlight fading from the rooftops. Each bite seemed to melt into the quiet until only the soft hum of the city remained. As he reached the edge of the market, Haruto stopped beside a bridge, the same one he had crossed before dawn. Now it looked transformed. The water below shimmered with the reflection of countless lanterns, each floating upon the current like a drifting thought. The air was filled with their faint rustle, a sound like sighing silk. He leaned against the railing, his hands resting on the cool wood. The scent of evening, part river, part smoke, part blossom, rose to meet him. The world around him glowed with a fragile beauty, as though everything, light, water, air, were made of the same slow, golden breath. For a long while, he simply stood there, watching the lights move. Each lantern carried its own story, its own small wish. Some moved quickly, some turned in place, caught by hidden eddies. Yet all drifted onward, bound for the same unseen sea. Haruto whispered, "Even light must rest, in the end." His reflection shimmered beside the lanterns, faint, wavering, almost transparent. The night had begun to wrap around him like silk, soft and endless. Behind him, the voices of the market began to fade. The old songs, the laughter, the shuffle of sandals all softened into memory. The wind carried them away, scattering them like petals over the darkening water. Haruto closed his eyes for a moment. The sound of the shamisen reached him once more, distant now, as though from another world. The melody wound through the air like a quiet farewell. When he opened his eyes again, the sky had deepened into indigo. The first stars appeared above the rooftops, trembling faintly through the haze of lantern smoke. He took a slow breath and began to walk again, his path following the water's edge. The lights reflected upon his face, painting him in shades of amber and gold. The city of Edo exhaled around him, settling into its evening dream. And as he disappeared into the soft glow of the lanterns, it seemed as though he were becoming part of the night itself, another quiet light drifting among the many. Chapter 7: The Night That Breathes. Night had returned, though it did not fall suddenly. It unfolded, slowly and kindly, like a kimono drawn over the shoulders of the world. The last lanterns from the evening market still floated upon the canal, their glow soft and trembling. The sky above had deepened into a velvet blue, stitched with a handful of stars that blinked like slow, patient eyes. Haruto walked once more beneath the osmanthus trees. The air was cool now, touched with a trace of river mist. The blossoms shone faintly in the moonlight, their fragrance growing stronger as the night deepened. Each step he took stirred a whisper from the leaves, as though the trees remembered his passing. The city around him had changed. The chatter, the laughter, the music all had faded into the hush that belongs only to the hours after midnight. Doors were closed, lanterns dimmed, yet life still lingered quietly in the flutter of a moth's wings, in the drip of water. From an unseen roof, in the distant hoot of an owl calling from a temple bell tower. Haruto paused by the edge of the canal. The water was dark, but it shimmered faintly where the moon touched it. A few petals floated upon its surface, tracing slow circles as the current carried them away. He knelt and dipped his fingers into the water. It was cold, but gentle. The ripples spread outward, distorting the reflection of the moon until it seemed to breathe. He whispered to no one in particular, "Perhaps the night is alive." And indeed, it was. The air itself seemed to draw in and exhale, as though the entire city were dreaming together. The wind moved softly through the alleyways, brushing across rooftops and carrying the faint scent of incense from a distant temple. Somewhere, a single bell tolled slow, deliberate, like a heart remembering to beat. Haruto closed his eyes and listened. The sound filled him, not as noise but as stillness and emptiness that was somehow complete. He felt as if the city were speaking to him in a language older than words, one that could only be heard through silence. He sat down on the edge of the stone embankment, his satchel resting beside him. From it, he drew one of the sheets he had written earlier that day, the inked memories of the night before. He unfolded it carefully and held it in the moonlight. The characters shimmered faintly, alive with the breath of the moment they had captured. For a long while, he read them silently, his lips barely moving. The words no longer felt like his own, they belonged to the night now, to the city, to the fragrance of osmanthus that drifted endlessly through time. A soft breeze rose, and the paper trembled in his hands. Without thinking, Haruto released it. The sheet lifted, turning once, twice, before settling upon the surface of the canal. It floated gently, carried by the current, its ink dissolving slowly into the dark water. He watched it drift away until it disappeared beneath the arch of the bridge. In that moment, he felt neither joy nor sorrow, only the deep, simple peace that comes from letting go. The wind brushed his hair. The trees whispered softly above. The stars shone a little brighter, as if in approval. Haruto stood and looked up at the sky. The moon, round and luminous, hung above Edo like a guardian spirit. He could feel the weight of its silence, not heavy but kind, pressing gently against his heart. He whispered again, almost to himself, "I am still walking, but perhaps I am walking through a dream." The thought brought a quiet smile to his lips. He turned away from the canal and began to wander back through the narrow streets. The stones beneath his feet glowed faintly, washed in moonlight. The night followed him, breathing softly, one with his own slow, steady rhythm. Each step felt lighter than the last, as though the earth itself were carrying him forward. The wind guided his path, curling around corners, through alleyways, past closed doors and sleeping gardens. And when at last he disappeared into the shadows of the osmanthus grove, the city of Edo exhaled once more. The petals fell silently, covering the path behind him. The air grew still. The night, now fully awake, breathed on. Epilogue beneath the endless blossoms. The night had thinned to a pale shade of silver. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the first breath of dawn waited, still hidden but already stirring the air. The city of Edo slept in a quiet deeper than dreams. The lanterns had gone out, yet their ghosts lingered, faint glimmers that floated in memory rather than in light. Haruto walked once more through the osmanthus grove. The petals had begun to fall more freely now, loosened by the cool wind that carried the scent of morning. They drifted in slow spirals, whispering against his sleeves, brushing against his hair. The world around him seemed half-formed, neither night nor day, neither dream nor waking. He followed the narrow path until it opened onto a small rise overlooking the canal. From there, he could see the roofs of Edo spread beneath the soft veil of mist. The river shimmered faintly, a ribbon of quiet silver winding through the heart of the city. For a long moment, he simply stood there, breathing. The wind moved gently through the trees. Each branch swayed as if alive, and the blossoms shimmered in the dim light. Their fragrance filled the air, warm and nostalgic, as though the earth itself remembered every footstep, every word, every breath that had ever passed through this hour. Haruto closed his eyes. The rhythm of the night still pulsed softly within him, the toll of the distant bell, the song of the wind chimes, the hush of the canal. It was all still there, layered beneath the quiet, echoing faintly like the heartbeat of a dream that refused to fade. He thought of the people he had met along his wandering, the tea woman with her calm smile, the old man and his wind chime, the laughter of unseen children playing beside the river. All of them still lived within this silence, part of the same gentle breath that carried the city from night into day. The first light began to gather at the edge of the sky, soft and trembling, as though unsure of itself. The stars dimmed, one by one, retreating behind the veil of dawn. Haruto felt no need to move. The world was changing around him, yet it did so with such grace that even time itself seemed reluctant to disturb the stillness. He knelt beneath one of the osmanthus trees. The earth was cool beneath his hands. A single blossom drifted down and landed upon his palm. Its fragrance was faint, almost gone, yet it carried the entire memory of the night within it. He smiled. Then, with slow care, he placed the blossom upon the ground. The breeze caught it gently, lifting it back into the air, where it spun once before joining the countless others that floated away over the canal, into the pale shimmer of morning. The first bird began to sing. Its voice was thin, almost fragile, yet it broke the silence like light breaking water. Another bird answered, and then another. The sound grew, layer upon layer, until the city itself seemed to awaken beneath the rising sun. Haruto stood. The light touched his face, soft, golden, eternal. He felt it pass through him, as if he were made of the same tender brightness. The world around him seemed to breathe with him, a slow inhale, a slower exhale, one endless moment of peace. And as he took his first step toward the waking city, the fragrance of osmanthus followed him, gentle, enduring, a promise that even dreams can live in daylight. The wind whispered once more through the trees, and the petals continued to fall, endlessly, upon the quiet streets of Edo. Paper lanterns and the bookshops glow. Prologue. The lanterns begin to glow. As the last breath of daylight faded from the streets of Edo, a hush settled over the narrow lane that led to Kundu, the bookshop of fortunate clouds. The shutters of nearby shops had already closed. their wooden signs swaying gently in the evening breeze, but this little bookshop remained open. Its paper lanterns had just been lit, their soft, amber glow spilling out onto the cobblestones. The air carried the faint scent of ink, paper, and the sweetness of drying persimmons that hung beneath the eaves. Inside, the shelves were lined with rows upon rows of hand-bound volumes, some new, their spines crisp and unbent, and others so old that the ink upon their pages had begun to fade into a silvery whisper. Sota sat behind the counter, his brush resting lightly in his hand. The shop was quiet now, the last customer gone, and only the slow tick of the hanging clock remained to mark the hour. He dipped the brush into the inkstone and let a bead of black gather at the tip. The scent of soot and pine rose, steady and comforting. Outside, a few lanterns bobbed in the evening wind. Their reflections trembled upon the canal's surface, making it seem as though the stars themselves had descended to the earth. Caught between ripples of water and night, Sota lifted his brush and began to write, not for commerce, not for a client's commission, but for the quiet pleasure of watching words appear. Each stroke was a breath, each curve a thought. He wrote not letters, but something closer to dreams. The shop's walls seemed to listen. The light shifted slightly, the paper sliding against the desk with a faint whisper. The world outside, the clatter of distant geta, the hum of an unseen shamisen faded into something softer, slower. He paused, letting the brush hover above the page. The lanterns outside flickered, their light waltzing across the ceiling beams. For a brief moment, Sota thought he heard something, a sigh, perhaps, or the faint murmur of a page turning by itself. He smiled. It was only the wind, or perhaps the books dreaming, as they sometimes did when the night grew gentle enough to listen. And so began another evening beneath the lantern's glow, a night, woven of ink and quiet, where stories breathed not from voices, but from the stillness between one word and the next. Chapter 1 Whispers among the pages. The night settled fully over Edo. The street outside Kundu was now a ribbon of silence, the sound of the canal's water the only thing that moved. The lanterns swayed gently in the wind, their paper skins glowing like small moons caught beneath the eaves. Inside the shop, the air was thick with warmth, the faint smoke of candlelight mingled with the scent of old wood and ink. Sota had finished his ledgers, but he had not yet gone upstairs to rest. Something in the quiet held him still, as though the books themselves were waiting. He rose from behind the counter and walked slowly between the shelves. His fingertips brushed along the binding's soft silk, worn paper, smooth bamboo thread. Each one seemed to hum faintly beneath his touch. Many of these books were older than he was. Some had been copied by monks from distant temples, others by traveling poets who had passed through Edo decades ago. Their words, once living and bright, now rested within the paper like seeds asleep beneath winter snow. Sota stopped before a shelf near the back, where the lantern light reached only faintly. A single book lay slightly apart from the rest, its cover made of dark indigo cloth, tied shut with a faded cord. He did not remember placing it there. Curious, he untied the cord and opened the cover. The pages inside were pale and thin, like breath. The characters were written in an elegant but unfamiliar hand, each line flowing like water, graceful and deliberate. But what caught him was not the writing itself, it was the faint, rhythmic sound that seemed to rise as he read. A whisper. At first, he thought it was his imagination, the soft rustle of paper as it shifted in his hands. But the sound persisted, delicate and steady, as though the ink itself were breathing. He leaned closer. The whisper was not in words. It was a kind of murmur, like a lullaby sung in a forgotten tongue. The rhythm matched the flicker of the lanterns, swaying gently with the air that stirred between the shelves. Sota smiled faintly. "You're awake tonight," he whispered to the book. The sound paused, then continued, quieter now, like the sigh of someone falling back into sleep. He turned another page. This one held a small illustration, a lantern floating upon dark water, its flame steady despite the ripples around it. Beneath it, a line of calligraphy read, "Each light remembers the hand that lit it." He read the words aloud, barely above a breath. As he did, something seemed to shift in the room. The candlelight trembled, the air thickened, and for a moment, Sota could swear that every book in the shop had turned its attention toward him. He felt it not fear, but an intimacy so deep it bordered on reverence. The books were listening. He closed the indigo volume gently and held it to his chest. The whisper faded into silence, but its rhythm lingered in his heartbeat. Sota walked back toward the counter and set the book beside the lantern. The flame within the lantern bent slightly, as if bowing in recognition. He sat again, pouring a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. He didn't drink it. He simply watched the steam curl upward, slow and delicate, like a ghost trying to remember its shape. Outside, a stray cat leapt lightly onto the shop step, pausing to peer through the doorway before vanishing again into the night. Sota watched it go, then looked once more at the sleeping shelves. The whisper had ended. The books were dreaming again. He dipped his brush into the inkstone and, on a small slip of paper, wrote down the words that remained in his mind. Even silence has a voice, if one is willing to listen. Then he placed the note between the pages of the indigo book, tied the cord once more, and blew out the candle. The last light of the lanterns flickered softly against the dark, and Kundu sank into a silence so gentle it could have been mistaken for the breath of sleep itself. Chapter 2: Ink Dreams and Lantern Light. The streets of Edo had grown quieter still. Lanterns swayed gently along the narrow alleys, their amber glow painting soft patterns on the wooden walls. The faint hum of a distant shamisen lingered in the air, curling like smoke, but even that sound seemed subdued beneath the night's slow breath. Sota stepped once more into Kundu. The shop smelled of old paper and ink, the familiar comfort wrapping around him like a warm kimono. The door slid shut behind him with a whisper, shutting out the rest of the city and leaving him alone with the books and the lantern's soft glow. He lit a small candle on the counter. Its flame wavered, casting long shadows between the shelves. He could feel the presence of the volumes all around him, each one holding centuries of thought, memory, and quiet magic. Sota opened a fresh sheet of paper and dipped his brush into the ink. As he wrote, the strokes moved almost of their own accord, forming delicate curves and lines. Each character seemed to hum softly, vibrating with a subtle energy, as if the words themselves were alive. Outside, the lanterns rocked gently in the breeze. Their light shimmered across the polished floor, and Sota imagined the glow was reaching into the margins of his paper, lending warmth to the characters he wrote. He paused, letting the brush hover. The silence of the shop was not empty, it was full, layered with the whispers of pages. The gentle sigh of the building settling, the distant rhythm of the river. Sometimes, in the quietest moments, he thought he could hear the books breathing. A single page turned, slowly, as though nudged by an unseen hand. The inked words on it seemed to ripple, faintly, like a reflection upon water. Sota smiled. He had never felt fear in these moments, only a deep sense of wonder. Here, beneath the lantern's soft light, the city and the shop became one. Time slowed, and the night stretched like silk around him. He dipped his brush again, and the ink flowed like liquid shadow. The words that emerged told no story for others, they were dreams, memories, fragments of moments too delicate to be spoken aloud. The lanterns remember every hand that lit them, every eye that lingered in their glow, every sigh that passed beneath them in silence. He read the lines aloud softly. The candle flickered, and the shadows on the walls seemed to lean closer, listening. A soft wind stirred the door, and the faint scent of osmanthus drifted inside. Sota inhaled it slowly, feeling it mingle with the ink and paper. The fragrance made the words on his page shimmer faintly, as if the air itself was helping to write them. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. Sota lost track. He simply wrote and listened, letting the night enfold him. The lanterns outside swayed gently. The city's heartbeat slowed to a rhythm that matched his own. Finally, he set down his brush and leaned back. The inked page glowed faintly in the candlelight, a small island of thought floating in the darkness. He traced the characters with his fingertips, feeling the memory of each stroke. And then he whispered to the shop, as if it were an old friend, "You dream well tonight, do you not?" For a moment, there was only the quiet hum of the lanterns, the faint murmur of the ink drying, and the soft sigh of the books around him. Sota rose, closed the page carefully, and placed it atop the counter. Outside, the wind carried a single stray petal past the doorway. And he watched it float into the shadows, as if joining the countless dreams that lived among the books. He blew out the candle, leaving only the soft, golden glow of the lanterns. Kundu seemed to breathe in the darkness, filled with quiet life. Sota stepped back, letting the shop hold him for a moment longer before he returned to the sleeping streets of Edo. The lanterns swayed. The books slept, but not entirely. And Sota, walking beneath the amber light, carried the whispers of ink and paper with him, soft, endless, and as gentle as the night itself. Chapter 3: The Quiet Visitor and the Midnight Glow. The streets of Edo were hushed, but not entirely still. A single paper lantern swayed above the entrance of Kundu, casting warm light onto the cobblestones. Somewhere nearby, a cat padded silently, its soft paws making no sound. The river reflected the faint shimmer of distant lanterns, carrying their light like slow-moving fire across the dark water. Sota was arranging new books on the shelf near the counter, his brush and ink put aside for a moment. The shop was quiet, as it had been every night, but tonight something felt different, a subtle pulse in the air, like the city itself was holding its breath. A soft knock came at the door. Sota paused. At this hour, visitors were rare. The knock was light, almost hesitant. "Who is it?" he called gently. The door creaked open, and a small boy stepped inside, no older than 7 or 8. His hair was damp from the evening mist, and his eyes were wide, reflecting the warm glow of the lanterns. He carried nothing but a small cloth bundle in his arms. "Good evening," Sota said softly, kneeling to meet the boy's gaze. The boy nodded, speaking in a voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to see the books. I've never been inside a shop at night. Sota smiled. You're welcome. But be careful, these books are old, and many are very delicate. The boy's eyes wandered across the shelves, taking in the rows of bound pages, the inked titles, and the faintly glowing candlelight. Each book seemed alive in the lamplight, its spine stretching toward him, inviting him closer. Sota guided him gently to a low table where a few of the shop's simpler volumes lay open. The boy reached for one, and as he touched the page, Sota noticed something extraordinary. The ink shimmered faintly, as if the words themselves were aware of the boy's presence. He had seen this before, many times, but never so vividly. Books in Kundu sometimes responded to the pure curiosity of a reader, especially when the reader carried no haste, no expectation, only wonder. The boy opened the book fully, and a small paper lantern illustrated on the page seemed to flicker with actual light. Sota blinked and leaned closer. The glow was real, soft and golden, reflected faintly on the boy's amazed face. "Do you see it?" Sota whispered. The boy nodded, wide-eyed. "It's alive." "Yes," Sota said quietly, "words can live, if you are willing to listen." For a long while, they sat together, reading silently. Outside, the night deepened, and the city's lanterns swayed in a gentle rhythm, echoing the quiet pulses of light within the shop. The distant sound of the river, the faint clatter of a night cart, the soft rustle of the wind, everything merged into a slow, soothing harmony. When the boy finally stood, the lantern in his hand seemed to glow brighter for a moment, as if bidding farewell. He pressed the small cloth bundle to his chest and whispered, "Thank you for letting the books speak." Sota bowed, his eyes soft. "Take care, little one. May your nights always be filled with gentle stories." The boy slipped out into the misty street, his small figure swallowed by the dark, leaving only the echo of his presence. Sota watched the door close and then returned to the counter. The shop seemed to sigh, as if acknowledging the brief touch of wonder that had passed through it. The books settled, the lanterns flickered softly, and the night wrapped around Kundu like a silken blanket. He leaned back in his chair, letting the quiet flow through him. The city beyond the windows was still alive, yet muted the sound of distant lanterns, the soft lapping of the river, the faint murmur of the wind weaving through alleyways. For a moment, Sota felt the line between reality and dream blur. The books hummed faintly, the lanterns glowed, and the night seemed to breathe as if it were conscious, aware of every small heartbeat in its midst. He closed his eyes, imagining the boy walking home beneath the paper lanterns, carrying with him a fragment of the magic he had felt in the shop. And as the night deepened, Sota, too, let the quiet, gentle rhythm of Kundu lull him toward dreams that were as real and fragile as ink upon paper. Chapter 4 Strolling Beneath Lantern Shadows. The city of Edo had grown quiet, yet it breathed with a subtle, constant rhythm. Lanterns swayed gently in the alleyways, their warm amber light flickering against the wooden walls and cobblestone paths. The canal reflected each glow, turning the water into a moving tapestry of gold and shadow. Sota stepped outside Kundu, feeling the cool night air brush against his face. His sandals made soft sounds on the stone as he began walking, the familiar streets unfolding around him like a slow, unhurried story. Each corner he passed seemed to carry a secret. A paper lantern in a distant shop swung slightly, casting a fleeting pattern upon the wall. The silhouette of a bamboo fence shimmered in the gentle light, and somewhere, faint laughter drifted from an unseen courtyard. Children who had lingered too long in their dreams. Sota's path led him along the canal. The water rippled under the faint breeze, sending golden reflections dancing along the banks. Occasionally, a fallen leaf drifted atop the water, moving with the current as though it were aware of the night's quiet magic. He paused on a small wooden bridge. From here, the city looked both familiar and strange. Lanterns dotted the streets like fireflies, casting shadows that seemed to sway to the rhythm of an unseen melody. Houses leaned softly against one another, their windows dark, yet glowing faintly from within as if the dreams of those who slept were leaking into the night air. Sota inhaled deeply, tasting the faint scent of ink and osmanthus that had followed him from Kundu. The fragrance mingled with the river breeze and the faint smoke of distant hearths, creating a scent that was at once comforting and mysterious. He walked on slowly, letting his thoughts drift as lightly as the shadows around him. The city had a heartbeat, and he could feel it in the gentle lapping of water against the bridge posts, in the soft sway of lanterns, and in the quiet footsteps of unseen night travelers. A small alleyway drew his attention. A single lantern flickered there, its glow revealing a tiny shrine tucked between two houses. Sota approached and noticed a small offering of rice and blossoms left upon the altar. He bowed his head slightly, acknowledging the presence of a world unseen yet palpably near. As he continued, Sota noticed a faint light moving along another street, a solitary figure carrying a lantern, walking slowly, their shadows stretching long and thin behind them. He imagined the person was also a keeper of quiet thoughts, like himself, wandering through the night in gentle reflection. Everywhere he looked, the city seemed alive, but in a way that was softer than life itself. Lanterns flickered, water glimmered, wind whispered through the eaves, and shadows swayed as if breathing. The streets were not empty, they were simply dreaming, as he did. Sota finally returned to the bank of the canal. He leaned against the wooden railing, watching the reflections of lanterns ripple across the dark water. Each flicker seemed like a small story, brief, luminous, and delicate, fading and reforming in an endless dance. He whispered to the night, as if it were an old friend, "Even in silence, you speak, don't you?" The wind answered with a gentle rustle of leaves. Somewhere, a cat padded along the edge of the canal, pausing to peer into the water before disappearing into the shadows. Sota closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the rhythm of Edo pulse around him. Every lantern, every whisper of wind, every ripple of water seemed to harmonize with the quiet beat of his own heart. He felt a sense of timelessness, as though the city itself were a living storybook, and he a single character moving softly within it. After a long pause, he rose and walked back along the lantern-lit path. The city exhaled slowly behind him, folding its dreams and lights into the night. Each step carried him gently, as though the streets themselves were guiding him back to Kundu, back to the books, back to the quiet glow of ink and paper. And as he passed beneath the final lantern outside the shop, he knew that both the city and the books would be waiting. Breathing softly together, ready to share their stories once more when night fell again. Chapter 5: The Secret of Flickering Lights. The night had grown deeper, and Edo lay beneath a sky thick with indigo. Lanterns swayed gently in every alleyway, their light soft and intimate, reflecting upon the still canal as if the stars themselves had descended to earth. Sota wandered slowly through the streets, guided by the lantern's gentle glow. Each light seemed to hold its own story, flickering in patterns that suggested whispers, secrets, or tiny dreams trapped in the paper skin. He paused at a small corner where 3 lanterns hung in a row. Their flames trembled, almost as if dancing, and Sota realized the light seemed to respond to him. Brightening subtly as he approached, dimming when he stepped away. Even lanterns remember those who walk beneath them, he murmured. The canal beside him mirrored the scene perfectly. Every lantern above had a twin below, moving with the water, forming a city of reflected fire. A paper boat, forgotten by a child earlier in the evening, drifted slowly past, carrying a flicker of candlelight inside its folded folds. Sota felt a gentle pull, a warmth in his chest. He followed the lantern-lit path to a quiet side street, where an old wooden gate led to a small courtyard. Inside, a single lantern had been placed beside a stone basin. Water rippled as though a breeze had passed, yet the night air was still. As he knelt to look closer, Sota noticed something remarkable. The surface of the water reflected not just the lantern's glow, but tiny movements like faint silhouettes of people reading, walking, or simply existing in moments that had not yet occurred. The images shimmered and shifted as if the basin itself held echoes of the city's countless dreams. He drew a slow breath and whispered, "Perhaps all the lights in Edo hold memories waiting for someone to notice." From the shadows, a soft sound of footsteps approached. Sota turned, expecting another night wanderer, but saw only a tiny lantern, bobbing lightly, floating toward him along the stone path. It stopped before the basin and hovered, a flame dancing inside. He realized it was not carried by anyone, just a small, living light, aware and delicate. The glow warmed his face, and he could almost hear it humming, faintly, like a lullaby. Sota knelt beside the basin, carefully placing his hand near the lantern without touching it. For a long moment, he watched the reflection of the flame ripple in the water, merging with the tiny silhouettes of the city's hidden dreams. Then he understood each flicker, each shadow, each shimmer was a secret of the night, an unnoticed moment, a whispered story, a life paused yet still vibrant. He smiled softly. The city, the lanterns, and the quiet magic of the streets were all alive. And for a moment, Sota felt he was part of something much larger than himself, a single heartbeat within Edo's endless, flickering rhythm. He rose and continued down the street, the lantern guiding him, their gentle light mingling with the reflections on the water and the scent of night air. The rhythm of the city seemed to follow him, slow and steady, like breathing, like the quiet pulse of a dream. By the time he returned to Kundu, the shop seemed to recognize him. The lanterns inside flickered softly, welcoming him back as though they had awaited his return all along. Sota lit a candle on the counter, settled into his chair, and opened a blank page. He dipped his brush into ink, ready to record the night's quiet wonders, the flickering lights, the reflections of lives in water. The secrets of Edo that only someone who walked beneath lanterns at midnight could notice. Outside, the city exhaled in gentle whispers. The night carried on, and Sota wrote, each stroke a delicate echo of the magical world around him. The lanterns swayed. The canal shimmered, and somewhere between shadow and glow, the secrets of the night waited patiently for those who would see them. Chapter 6 Lanterns and the River's Whisper. The night stretched endlessly over Edo, a quiet ocean of indigo and shadow. Lanterns hung along the river banks, their reflections trembling upon the water as though the stars had descended to drift among the ripples. The soft murmur of the river whispered through the air, carrying with it the scent of osmanthus, ink, and a faint trace of incense from distant temples. Sota walked slowly along the canal, each step careful and deliberate. His sandals whispered against the stones, echoing softly in the stillness. The river's surface mirrored the lanterns, doubling the light and creating a city of twin flames, flickering like the pulse of a quiet heartbeat. He paused at a small wooden pier. The water lapped gently beneath it, shimmering beneath the lantern's glow. Sota leaned on the railing, watching the reflections ripple as a gentle breeze stirred. A paper boat, perhaps forgotten by a child earlier in the evening, drifted past, carrying the flicker of a tiny candle. Its light danced across the water, moving in rhythm with the soft sigh of the river. "Even water remembers the night," he whispered, feeling a quiet resonance in the air. As he continued, Sota noticed a series of lanterns swaying in a narrow alley beside the canal. Each light seemed to lean slightly toward him, as if curious, as if the night itself was observing his passage. The soft hum of the city, faint footsteps, the rustle of leaves, distant bells wove into a delicate chorus, perfectly synchronized with the river's murmur. He knelt beside the water, letting his reflection mingle with the lanterns. For a moment, it seemed as if the city had breathed into the canal, creating a mirrored world where reality and dream coexisted. From the shadows, a soft ripple appeared, not from the current, but from something smaller, brighter. A lantern, freed from its holder, floated across the water, bobbing gently. Its flame flickered like a heartbeat. Sota watched it drift by, following its movement with awe. He dipped his fingers into the cool river. The water embraced them gently, carrying a faint, electric warmth, as though the night itself had decided to touch him. The lantern floated past, illuminating a small, unexpected detail. A single blossom had fallen onto the water, resting upon the flame's reflection, suspended between shadow and light. Sota inhaled deeply, letting the fragrance and the scene seep into him. In that moment, he understood the secret of the night: every lantern, every ripple. Every whisper of wind or water held a memory, a story, or a dream, waiting to be noticed. He rose, walking back along the canal's edge. The city around him seemed to breathe in time with his steps, the lanterns swaying gently, the reflections shimmering in harmony. Every corner, every shadow, every beam of light carried its own quiet magic. Returning to Kundu, Sota felt the books themselves seem to hum softly, as if welcoming the river's whispers back into their pages. He lit a candle on the counter and opened a blank sheet of paper. The ink flowed from his brush with a gentle ease, capturing the night's tender secrets, the flickering lanterns. The river's pulse, the quiet stories hidden between shadow and reflection. Outside, the city exhaled. The lanterns glowed. The river whispered. And Sota, immersed in ink and paper, became part of the night itself, a heartbeat within the endless, shimmering rhythm of Edo. Chapter 7: Dreaming Streets and Silent Pages. The night deepened, yet Edo seemed alive with a quiet, watchful presence. Lanterns lined the streets like suspended stars, casting their golden glow on wooden walls and narrow alleyways. The river beside them shimmered faintly, reflecting each light as if the city itself were breathing in soft rhythms. Sota walked slowly along the familiar streets, his sandals brushing gently against the stones. Each step echoed faintly, as though the city wished to acknowledge him. The distant hum of water, the rustle of bamboo leaves, and the faint murmur of a temple bell blended into a lullaby of night. Every corner he passed seemed to hold a secret. Shadows leaned gently, lanterns swayed as if bowing, and the faint scent of osmanthus and ink followed him like a soft melody. The streets themselves felt as if they were dreaming, each alleyway a page in a book he had not yet read. Sota paused outside a small shrine tucked between houses. A single lantern glowed above it, illuminating a delicate offering of blossoms and rice. He knelt briefly, bowing his head in silent respect. The air was alive with whispers, soft echoes of lives and moments, each one glowing in the amber light. As he continued, the river beside him seemed to pulse gently, reflecting the city's lights and the faint silhouettes of those still awake. A paper boat drifted along the current, carrying the glow of a miniature candle. Sota leaned closer and noticed that the flame's reflection seemed to form tiny characters upon the water, words written by the night itself. He smiled softly. Words and light, shadow and water all intertwined. The city was a living storybook, and he was both reader and character. Moving slowly through a narrative that existed in the quiet spaces between lanterns and river ripples. Eventually, Sota returned to Kundu. The shop's paper lanterns welcomed him, their gentle sway like arms embracing a familiar friend. Inside, the shelves of books seemed to lean forward slightly, eager to share the night's secrets with him. He lit a candle and opened a blank sheet of paper. The ink flowed like liquid shadow, capturing the essence of the streets, the river, the lanterns, and the unseen stories carried in the night air. Each stroke of his brush felt like a dialogue with the city itself, a quiet conversation that needed no words beyond the ones forming upon the page. Outside, the lanterns swayed. The river whispered. The streets dreamed. And Sota, immersed in ink and paper, became part of the quiet magic, a heartbeat within Ito's endless, nocturnal story. The night seemed to pause, holding him, the books, and the city together in a delicate balance. Every flicker of lantern light, every ripple in the water, every whispered breath of wind became a part of the same rhythm, a rhythm that stretched across the city and into dreams. Sota closed his eyes for a moment, letting the quiet of the streets and the pages fill him. When he opened them again, the city had not changed, yet everything felt luminous with potential, every lantern, every shadow, every corner a story waiting to be discovered. And so, the night continued, endless and tender, with Sota walking through it, writing it, and dreaming it all at once. Epilogue: The morning among lanterns. The first light of dawn was delicate, almost shy, brushing gently against the rooftops of Edo. Lanterns still swayed faintly in the early breeze, their amber glow softening into pale gold as the sun began to awaken the city. The river mirrored the sky, reflecting hints of pink and silver, and the quiet lapping of water seemed to hum a farewell to the night. Sota stepped outside Kundu one last time before the morning fully arrived. The streets were nearly empty, the city holding its breath in a final, gentle pause. He walked slowly, taking in the faint scent of ink, osmanthus, and distant incense that lingered from the night before. Every shadow, every flicker of light, seemed to whisper its last story of the night. Lanterns hung along the streets, their flames dimming as sunlight began to filter through the wooden lattices of houses. The river shimmered with soft reflections, as if every lantern that had floated upon its surface now lingered in memory. Sota paused on the bridge, leaning gently on the railing. The city seemed to stretch before him, sleeping yet awakening, familiar yet subtly transformed. He could feel the heartbeat of Edo in the soft murmur of water, the gentle sway of lanterns, and the distant call of birds welcoming the day. He imagined the books in Kundu, resting quietly, their pages still warm with the night's magic. Each character, each brushstroke, held a fragment of the dreams carried through the streets, the paper boats, the floating lights, the quiet footsteps, the whispers of children and cats, the soft ripple of water. Sota smiled softly. The night had passed, but its memory remained in every corner, every reflection, every shadow. It was not gone, it was woven into the city itself, into the light of morning, and into the heart of anyone who had wandered beneath the lanterns and listened. He walked back toward Kundu, feeling the last whispers of night dissolve into the gentle warmth of day. The lanterns on the shop swayed lightly, as if nodding in farewell, their light soft and tender. He opened the door, the familiar scent of books greeting him like an old friend. Sota took a seat behind the counter, opening a fresh sheet of paper. The ink was cool in his brush, ready to capture the fleeting beauty of dawn. He wrote slowly, deliberately, each stroke a remembrance of the night's quiet wonders, the lanterns, the river, the whispering streets, and the silent magic of the city. Outside, Edo awoke in gentle steps. The lanterns, once flickering and alive in the night, now glowed softly in the morning light before being extinguished. The river carried reflections of the awakening sky. The streets, once full of secrets and whispered stories, now shimmered with new possibilities. And Sota, immersed in ink and paper, felt a deep, tender peace. The city and its dreams, the night and its lanterns, the books and their quiet stories all had become one. He set down his brush and gazed out at the streets. A soft wind passed through, carrying the faint scent of blossoms and the echo of the night. Sota closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, letting the memory of the nocturnal world linger, delicate and eternal. The morning light embraced the city fully now. Edo had awakened, yet the magic of the night remained hidden in every shadow, every ripple of water, every corner where lanterns had once danced. And so, the story ended not with silence, but with a gentle continuation, a city that dreamed, a bookshop that remembered, and a heart that walked beneath lanterns, carrying the night's quiet magic into the first light of day.